Democrats nearly defeated a resolution brought forth by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to censure Representative Maxine Waters after she encouraged protesters in Minnesota to, quote, get more confrontational if they don't see a guilty verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. You previously put out a censure on Waters in 2018 for her violent rhetoric. Your reaction to this latest vote?
Well, first of all, you're right. In 2018, she encouraged people to be violent to anybody who supported Donald Trump. That was number one. That's not fit and becoming of a U.S. congressperson and congressman. And then when we look in 2021, it wasn't just that she was violating the law, the curfew law. It wasn't just that she was inciting violence, which is all bad enough. But it is the fact that she was doing it to try to intimidate and influence a jury that was about to hear closing arguments and to deliberate on a case. She basically said she expected a guilty, guilty, guilty on all three counts, and if she didn't get it, then she wanted people to get up in the face and cause trouble. That is enough. It was so bad that even the judge said that's probably an appealable issue. It would be ironic if the case gets overturned because of her horrible, intemperate rhetoric. And so I was hopeful that we'd see a few Democrats be rational about this and say, yeah, that's impermissible. You cannot do it. But they refused to do so.
And you took the words right out of my mouth when you mentioned how Judge Peter Cahill, he even said, yes, this could be grounds for an appeal. Well, moving on now, today, House lawmakers will be voting on legislation to make D.C. a state. It's widely expected to pass along party lines, but likely to fail in the Senate. What do you say to those who argue D.C. deserves a representation in Congress?
Well, they have representation. They just don't have the vote. And as so many have said all along, the purpose of the District of Columbia, or what we would call the federal city, and what the founders said is they want to keep it independent, so you're not dependent on a state that can influence you. And so you got the Constitutional Amendment number 23 that kind of indicates that you need a constitutional amendment if you're going to turn the District of Columbia into a state. This is a bad idea. It's such a bad idea that even Joe Biden and Steny Hoyer and other Democrats who currently serve in Congress said it was before they decided that they wanted to try to get a couple of extra Senate seats in a district that's registered and votes about 93% Democrat. So it's a horrible idea, and there are other ways to do this. You can try to give the land back to Maryland, I suppose, but you should not be doing this particular remedy that they're seeking by creating turning DC into a state. So you're going to see it on party line here, and already Democrats in the Senate have already said that's a bad idea. They're not going to do it.
And it's interesting, too, because, I mean, even there's, for example, in the Constitution, it says the founding fathers, they wanted to make D.C. not a state, and they even have D.C., they have electoral votes. So it's not as though they're not being represented in that regard. Well, switching gears, in your state of Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey announced the state is sending up to 250 Arizona National Guard members to border communities to support law enforcement efforts. What sort of policies would you like to see the Biden administration implement or enforce in order to curb the spread of illegal immigration that's happening at our southern border?
You know, Stephanie, this administration could clear this thing up very quickly. The first step would be for the administration, for the president to come out and say, quit coming. We're going to turn you away at the border. We're going to enforce our immigration laws. That'd be step one. The second thing you would do is you would reinstitute the Remain in Mexico policy, the agreement with Mexico. You'd reinstitute the programs that we had with the Northern Triangle states of El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. You would do that, and in the total of 12 international agreements that they got rid of, you would stop the $1,400 money that's going to be going from COVID and giving it to illegal aliens. You would also build the fence. You'd finish the fence. We've got funding that was already put in place. We've got a lot of fencing panels that are just sitting there on the ground waiting to go up. And then I guess another important issue is you would get rid of these false asylum claims by moving your immigration courts to the border, taking care of these asylum claims immediately. Forget about the backlog for now and start sending people home, give them their due process and send them home, because over 90% of asylum claims are false and fraudulent. So you would give them their due process and send them home. You could do that very quickly. And then I'll tell you, I have some pride of ownership, but a bill that I sponsored that would take care of the Florida settlement, it would take care of the asylum issues that we have. You would implement that. You would pass that. But right now, Stephanie, they don't want to do any policies because this is deliberate. This is what they intended. They campaigned on open borders, and this is what open borders looks like. It's a crisis on the border.
And Kamala Harris, I mean, she was appointed essentially the border crisis czar, but she hasn't made any efforts to actually address a crisis. She's going to be heading to different states to tout Biden's infrastructure plan. But on that note, last month, the Government Accountability Office announced it's launching a review to determine if Biden broke the law by freezing funds going toward construction of the border wall after it was already appropriated by Congress. How much of a difference would it make if the GAO ruled in favor of the GOP lawmakers who brought this up?
Well, number one, it would delegitimize their efforts to stop the building of the fence, and number two, it would provide a real legal basis to bring the lawsuits that are necessary to enforce building of the fence against this administration. That's an important step. I think that you'll find that they did indeed violate the law. They didn't have authority to stop the construction, but they did anyway. Just like they stopped all of the Trump policies that were working so well and gave us operational control of the border. So I applaud that decision to look into it, and I believe that the outcome will be that the Biden administration has clearly violated the law.
And lastly, the White House is gearing up to unveil a $1 trillion spending proposal dubbed the American Families Plan for child care, universal pre-K, and education, among other items. Do you expect this will receive any support from GOP lawmakers?
It's hard to imagine it would. I mean, you already have the $2 trillion infrastructure bill where 5% goes to transportation, and then everything else becomes infrastructure, including child care and family leave and elder care. And, you know, who knows, maybe Nancy Pelosi's lunch is in there. Maybe they're going to get it. Everything is in this now. Everything is infrastructure. The left has really changed the definition of what is infrastructure. We can't let them. We have to get back and tell the truth. I can't imagine any Republicans supporting this. It is outrageous and just increases our national debt and doesn't do anything to build infrastructure and transportation that you and I would say is, well, how about roads and highways, maybe some ports, maybe some rail lines, airports, those types of things. What this does is, for them, infrastructure is laying the foundation to create a neo-fascist Marxist state, and that's what they're trying to do as they buy this. They try to buy people off with these massive spending bills.
It will be really interesting to see how Biden tries to sell this to you and other GOP lawmakers in his joint session of Congress. But as you mentioned, we expect that there's going to be a lot of pet projects in there. Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you so much again for your time and input.
Hey, thank you, Stephanie. Good to